Sorry. And Shabbat Shalom, everybody. Welcome to the Virtual House Church. I am your host, Rob Skiba, and I'm happy to be joined by John Hall. Hey, John, how you doing?
Shabbat Shalom, Rob. I'm loving the new logo.
Yeah, right before we went live, that's what we were snickering. I said, hey, I changed the logo. I don't know if that's the logo I'm going to keep. I was just messing around with it, coming up with ideas. And in fact, you know what? Maybe we'll just open it up to the audience and say, hey, unless you guys like this one, come up with some ideas and email them to either John or myself, and we'll have like a little contest for whoever can come up with the coolest Virtual House Church logo. But just looking at that globe that was there for all these years, and after all my research in the last 2 years, I'm like, yeah, I don't know if I can keep that one. But I made this speaker here. And so you kind of got both. You got the azimuthal equidistant map in the background here, but you also got what looks like a globe right here. So you kind of got a little bit of both going on inside the speaker to keep everybody happy. But somebody's probably still not going to like it anyway. So
Well, I tell you what, guys, just message me and I'll get it over to Rob. So that way they all get seen.
Yeah, there you go.
I love it. That made me smile.
right. Like literally right before we went live, we said, hey, John, check this out. He like starts laughing. And I was trying not to laugh myself as I start the broadcast. But oh, well.
It's Shabbat.
It's Shabbat, man.
And it's the Virtual House Church, man. This is, I don't know if you've noticed. Well, I know you've noticed. You've been over there several times looking up and down the Virtual House Church page, but it's growing leaps and bounds. And the discussions over there have been far and in between, and everybody's been real cordial as far as different viewpoints. And I've really enjoyed the fellowship over there. So excellent stuff going.
Yeah, awesome. Well, glad to hear it. Glad to see it. I haven't been able to be as active over there as I'd like to be just because I got so much going on. Speaking of, well, let me put the screen share back on. I made a few changes, not just the logo. I was kind of messing around here because originally in the welcome page here, I said, hey, we're no longer doing live services. And I'm like, well, yeah, we are. So I got to change all that. So there's links right now on the main page, virtualhousechurch.com, saying you can join us on Friday evenings at 8 p.m. Central Standard Time by clicking here. And that takes us to the Now You See TV page where they can interact with us right there. So on Friday nights, that's how you can get there quickly. I did the Genesis workbook in the World English Bible translation. What I did was I added to all the pages in Genesis, all the Genesis week 1 through 12. There's the button for either one. So now if you click on this one, the first one, that's to the King James version of the workbook right there. And if you click on the second one, it says the above workbook is in the KJV. It is now also available in the World English Bible translation. You can click on that and it'll take people directly, because some people are having trouble finding it. So on all of the Genesis pages, I have these 2 links now. So if anybody's interested, they could go there. A little piece of trivia. 6 years ago today, on Black Friday, 2010, is when I crossed over to start doing this the first time. It was a Black Friday. Many people have heard me tell this story, but it was a Black Friday when I was just feeling really heavy. This like heavy, ugly feeling was on top of me, and I hate Black Friday anyway. I mean, it's just everybody is so thankful on Thanksgiving, right? And then the next day, everybody's killing each other. But it wasn't that. I hate that, but that wasn't what was weighing on me. Something else was, and I just felt like, oh God, I need to pray with somebody. And so I went through my contact list, and literally it was like Father just pointed my friend Kevin Roberts out to me and said, call him. So I called him, and he prayed with me. We chatted for a minute, and he says, hey, Amanda and I are going to a Torah study tomorrow at the Christian bookstore. You want to go? And I'm like, what? Torah study at the Christian bookstore? That just sounded weird, But, I'd already been spending a lot of time in the Torah with all the other research I was doing. So I thought, yeah, this could be interesting. And I went there, and man, I haven't looked back since. It's been amazing. So there's a little bit of an anniversary for me right now today. And also something else that I did on these pages is I rearranged the the broadcasts. Originally, I was having like the most recent broadcast first. I thought, you know what, I'm just going to go ahead and put them in chronological order. So we started doing these shows in 2012. Virtual House Church, as a ministry, was born in 2012. And all I have is the audio version for the 2012 broadcast. And of course, I took the 2013 broadcast last year and this year and turned them into YouTube videos. So they were done last year and this year, but it was from the 2013 broadcast. So, and of course, the ones that we're doing here now with you and Now You See TV are 2016 broadcasts. So they're all in a row now, at least for the Genesis ones. I haven't done any of the updates for any of the other ones, but all the Genesis weeks. So if you click on each one, you'll see the 12 broadcasts, 13 broadcasts, and 2016 broadcasts. This evening, we will be doing week number 5. And so I got the 2012 broadcast, the 2013, and people can click right here now. And we are doing this one right now.
I'm hoping people listen to the 2013 because I listened to that earlier today, man. That was jam-packed, again, full of information.
Yeah. Yeah, lots of cool stuff. I actually went and listened to the 2012 one today. I was updating the sites, and interestingly enough, if you go to the Who We Are page, this picture of Sheila and I was taken in Cape Town, South Africa, and that's where we were 4 years ago today. In fact, if you listen to the 2012 broadcast, it was right before we left. And I'm telling people, hey, if you're out in South Africa, we're going to be out there in your neck of the woods, and was given the dates of where we're going to be and what we were going to be doing. So it's kind of neat to listen to that again and remember that. And I realized, wow, this picture on the Who We Are page has been there since I started this website,
right?
More or less. And that was taken in Cape Town, South Africa. So that's kind of cool. People
Wow.
Checked out a little bit about who we are. And of course, again, I want to thank anybody that has contributed to us financially. Wow. I tell you what, I don't know how we could continue doing it without the generous contributions of various people out there. Sometimes as small as $5, sometimes more, but every little bit helps, and we certainly appreciate it. And I want to be more intentional about thanking our supporters, because truly we couldn't do it without you. So thank you. And man, I'm ready to get started. You ready to jump in?
I'm ready to jump in.
All right. Well, you said you listened. I listened to 2012. You said you listened to the 2013. So maybe we'll start with you. Do you have any comments on what you heard from 2013?
Well, you made me open up the book of Jasher, is what you did. And I was looking at Sarah, the story of Sarah and her death. And Jasher brings in Hazatan. Mm-hmm. He visits her as an old man, and he gets her all riled up that Abraham has just killed Isaac, and she goes in a flurry trying to find them. And again, he appears to her later and says, "Oh, don't worry about it. He's not dead." And then she, from her, excitement, she died. Well, I don't know if it's a heart attack or not, but that's how she ended up dying. And I'm going, what? Where have I been? I've read Jasher. I don't remember that, so I had to go back and look at it.
Yeah, after all the struggles that she has and everything, freaking out about what's going on, and then when she finds out that he's not dead, she gets so excited she dies. But yeah, that's actually put the Joshua portion here on the week 5 study. And I also want people to pay attention to this section right here. Additional Torah study readings. This is by yourlivingwaters.com. A person named Ardell did commentary in 2008 and 2009. Fantastic commentaries. Really highly encourage people to take advantage of those resources. But yeah, I actually put the Joshua account right there on the page, so people can actually just read it right here if they're interested. And there's quite a bit going on right here. But yeah, it's pretty interesting. And also some stuff that I pointed out regarding Ephron of the Hittites, that Abraham had negotiated with a character named Ephron, whose name means fawn-like. And he's of the Hittites, and the Hittites, their name means the terrors, and they are fond of carving animal-human hybrids in stone, and making depictions of chimera and stuff like that. So it's speculation, I admit it, but it's interesting if you just look at the meanings of the words. And I wonder if we know the animal-human hybrids did exist. They're in every single culture. Ancient world has some sort of depiction of animal-human hybrids. and they were actually depicting the Hittites have carvings of satyrs. And so you got this guy who is of the terrors, the Hittites, who make depictions of things like satyrs, and this guy Ephron, his name means fawn-like. So I wonder if Abraham was negotiating with a satyr for a burial plot for his wife Sarah. And I talk about that in this video, of course, in the book and DVDs. This is a book that I highly recommend people check out. You can also check this out online by clicking that link. That this book is actually online, so you can look up all the names by letter. So Aaron means light bringer, and it's all the names in the Bible and the corresponding English, the meanings of their names. So a fantastic resource. Check that out. Check it out online, or of course you could buy the book. This picture right here, I was in the 2012 broadcast. I was sort of counseling somebody that he's in his 40s. He's never been married, and he says, maybe I'm supposed to just be like Paul, and not be married. I said, well, you know what? I believe that if you're cool with that, then God gives you a grace to be single. But we see in Scripture it's not good for man to be alone, and so if you are out there and you have a longing for a mate and you don't yet have one, I truly believe that it's God's desire for everybody to have a mate, especially if you have that desire. And so it was sort of counseling a person on the 2012 episode about that. And in the course of talking with him, I was telling the story about how Yahuwah let me know that Sheila was the one for me. And we had sort of courted for a number of years. We met in the ministry that we were a part of. I got hired in January of 2004. She got hired in August of the same year. We were in the communications department. And from 2004 to 2007, we spent a lot of time working together, and we'd go out together on lunch breaks, and we'd read the Bible together and books and stuff that we were both interested in. And, we had an on and off again courtship during that time. And during that season, I was praying, Father, make me into the husband my future spouse needs me to be. And she used to get upset about that because we pray together sometimes, and I would pray that way, and because she wanted to be my spouse, and I would say my future spouse, and she was like, well, and one day I just said to her, I said, look, I'm not interested in anybody who's not praying the same way I'm praying. It's a two-way street here. If I'm working real hard over here trying to, be what God needs me to be for his daughter that he's going to give me, then I want a daughter of his to be praying the same way for me. I'm not going to settle for anything less, And, she eventually started praying that way too, I think. But this one day, we're coming back from our lunch break, and she used to always stop at this little convenience store to get a coffee. And so we pull into the convenience store. She gets out. She's walking into the building, and I'm looking at her, and I'm saying, Lord, this has been a great season, last few years with her as a friend and everything. I said, is she the one that you've prepared for me? And I kid you not, that was the only cloud in the sky. And it was, and I was like, I'm watching her go in the door. I'm praying that prayer, and it's almost like he just gently grabbed my chin and pushed my head to look up, and literally, like right above the door of the building, was this cloud. I took this picture probably about 10 or 15 minutes later, and in that time, it had elongated to the shape that you see here, but when I saw it, when I was praying, it was a little bit more truncated, and it looked like a perfect heart. I mean, it was like a comic book, dude. I mean, I'm like, it's just the only cloud in the entire sky is this little heart, and I just started laughing. I'm like, wow, okay.
Well, so, did you propose to her right there?
Well, not right there, but I just kind of laughed to myself. And when we got back to the ministry, we got out of the car, and I said, hey, check that out. At that time, it looked more like this. I said, man, it looks like an angel. She's like, yeah, wow, that's cool, I told her about it later, what the deal really was with that. But and so this was the seed that was like, okay, Lord. Now, years prior, after I came to Dallas from my divorce and everything, and I was really messed up, and that hurt so bad. I'm like, you know what? Clearly, I didn't pick very well. My picker button is broken, so I'm going to ask Yahuwah to pick for me next time. I said, but I'm going to create a list of things I gotta have and things that I can't stand. You know, that proverbial list, right? The gotta haves and can't stands, right? So I create this gotta have can't stand list, and you know, this is like early 2003, so before I even met her, and not too long after I had this sign given to me, I was going through some boxes in my apartment, and I happened to find that list. And I start looking through the list again, and I started laughing. I said, wow, she fit all the gotta haves and none of the can't stands, you know? And I'm going, well, shoot, what am I waiting for? You know, and it's funny because this is 2007 now. And in January of 2007, I went to Kenya. In fact, I actually posted that trip on YouTube. If you go to my YouTube page, and Sheila used to take me to the airport whenever I would go on my trips and stuff like that. And yeah, this one right here, my trip to Kenya in 2007. Okay. Sheila, and that's the one with the Moses story. If you remember,
yes,
that from a while back, you and I were having that talk, and here on Virtual House Church, and I told you about Moses. This is the whole sort of the highlight video I made of the trip, and it includes the Moses testimony. She took me to the airport. This is January of 2007. And on the way to the airport, we get into this blowout, just big time blowout fight.
Uh-oh.
and we break up. That's it. You know, that's it. And you know, it was a big fight, literally taking me to the airport. I get out of the car, and you know, I'm kind of messed up by the whole thing, but I got to get on the plane and fly 14 hours or whatever it was to Kenya and do my thing there. So I kind of went into military mode, you know. I was like, okay, I got a job to do. I'm going to shut my emotions off on this trip, you know, and just do my job. And then during that time that I had just kind of switched everything off, she had kind of rethought the fight and everything. And when I came back and everything, she was kind of wanting to get back together again. And I was done, man. I'm like, nope. I'm like, forget it. I'm done. And it's not long after that. It wasn't long after that all these other things started coming up, and the other that the list showed up again. Okay, so something happened between January and I want to say it was March. I'm pretty sure it was March that I see the sign, I see the paper. I said, "What am I waiting for?" I just went out and bought a ring, and I proposed to her, and then we were married in July. Just a few months later, because I figured if I'm going to do this, and this really is of God, then the only date that's going to work for me is 7/7/7, July 7th, 2007, and so that's how it happened.
Miss Sheila is a sharp lady, man. She is definitely sharp.
For sure, she's definitely my soulmate, no question about it. And I also know that Yahuwah picked her for me. Now, I will say this: when I got hired in the ministry in January of 2004, she got hired in August. My parents came down from Massachusetts to visit, and I took them to my place of employment to show them where I work now, and you know, the ministry, and introduce her to all the people in my department and stuff like that. And when we went to Sheila's cubicle and introduced Sheila to my mom, as my mom and I are walking away from there, Mom's like ribbing me, going, "What about that one? What about that one?"
Uh-huh.
And I'm like, no, because at that time she was engaged. When she first came to the ministry, she was engaged, and she had a son. And you know, kids just were not on my radar. That was, you know, not anything that I love kids, but it just, you know, I wanted to be the kind of father that my father was. He was a 9 to 5 kind of guy. You know, he worked his job, came home at 5 o'clock, and he was dad. You know. I'm not that. I don't do a 9 to 5. I work all the time. I travel all the time. And, you know, I just figured if I was going to be a father, I wanted to be the type of father that my dad was, but I don't live that kind of lifestyle. So kids just weren't on my radar. There's, you know, at that time, I'm like, no, she's cool. She's, you know, I think she's attractive and all that, but nah. But Mom knew. And later Yahuwah confirmed it. So, yeah, we're coming up on our 10th anniversary next year.
Praise Yahweh for that. Praise Yahweh for that. So Black Friday 2010 and then on is just, Yahweh has just spun you.
Boom.
Nonstop for Rob Skiba.
Yeah, you could say that. Yeah. So those are some of the things that stand out to me from this week's study. Also, that Abraham took a wife of the Canaanites, which just blew me away. He marries Keturah.
Mm-hmm.
And let me see where. Let me put this up on. I think that was also in the Joshua portion.
It is.
I don't know if I included that here. I don't think I did. Yeah, right here. So Abraham. Yeah, here it is. Joshua 25 is the parallel to I think the last chapter of Genesis that's in our portion for this week. At that time, Abraham took a wife in his old age, and her name was Keturah from the land of Canaan. I'm like, what? He marries a Canaanite, and we see that Midian was one of the children, and Midian. If you look up the name Midian on that website, I think the name means strife, if I remember right. And we certainly see that was what happened with them. It certainly caused strife for Israel. Here we go. Yep, Midian.
It caused some problems.
Contention and strife. Yep.
That's these names, man. They're cracking me up. Terror.
Oh yeah. I mean, names mean things. We know that God changed Abram's name, which I think Abram meant blessed prince, I believe. Abram. Well, let's just look it up. And he changed it to father or Abraham, which is like father of many nations, I believe. Yeah, father is exalted. Blessed father is Abram. I've also heard it as blessed prince.
Yeah. I think that's what they call Yeshua. Shalom. Something like that. Shar Shalom.
Shar Shalom.
Shar Shalom, yeah. Man, I'm digging this low voice I got from the cold.
Yeah, it's funny you should say that, because if you listen to any of my audio, like my audio book for Babylon Rising, or some of those books, or anytime I've done audio recording, I always do it when I first wake up in the morning, when you have that deep voice going on in the morning.
I feel like I'm gonna pull the scriptures out and read John 1:1 in the beginning.
There you go. You got the James Earl Jones going on.
Anyways, I'm going to open up the chat room, let some people in to talk about the Torah portion. And again, guys, during the week before the Virtual House Church comes on Friday nights, we ask that you read the Torah portion for the week. Go into virtualhouse.com, and you have it all lined up there like you showed them at the beginning of the show, and read up on it, listen to the show, whether it's 2012 or later ones, and then come on and discuss this, and then we go through the rest of the scriptures, and we're still in Joshua, I think.
Yeah, and, we're going to start with Joshua 11, I think.
Yeah, Rob has set it up to where he wants to talk to you and see your comments and what your thoughts are. So I'm going to go ahead and set the link in the chat room. I'm sitting there thinking, I would not want to get into a tissy with Miss Skiba at all.
She's Italian, so
I would not want to do that.
Yeah. Well, you got a stubborn Polak and a passionate Italian.
That's okay.
Yeah, the sparks can fly as well as pots and pans and other things.
Guys, when you come into the chat room, if you could, because I don't know how many people are going to be coming, hit your mute button, and then we'll go from there, and we'll take whoever comes first. There we go. Oh, look, Samuel's on.
Samuel.
Hey, Samuel. Welcome to the show.
Shabbat Shalom, guys, and hello again.
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, well, first, Paul's going to be relieved because I'm not diving into any of his letters tonight. I'm actually going into John. And just off the bat, I'm just going to say everything because there's a few points I want to make, and then I want to hear what you guys want to say. Okay, so first off, starting in the beginning of John chapter 4, verses 1 to 12, surprisingly enough, has Yeshua acting out a similar scene or a scene similar to Eliezer with Rebecca in Genesis 24:10-44, in that the theme of water and the satiating of the thirst comes into play, which I found interesting. I was curious to see what your guys' thoughts were on that. Next, in verses 13-26, has Yeshua kind of jumping back a portion here, going into how the children of Yah come through belief that fosters obedience, as Isaac, of course, was the children born under such a circumstance. I say that because he was theoretically bought back from his sacrifice with Abraham. And this one's where it gets it, where I'm actually most fascinated by this. Verses 14-44, as Yeshua explaining how the former sows for the latter. And what I mean by that is how the latter, say for instance, the next generation of believer always reaps what the former believer sows, and that the former generation sows while they simultaneously reap. And it's actually a really interesting image that puts in my head, actually, that we're both gleaning the fruits of those before us, but also planning for the next generation at the same time. And I was just curious to see what you guys thought about those individual things.
Wow, a lot to comment on that there. That is really interesting. Just looking at it real quick while you were talking, I'm looking at John 4, and also that conversation takes place at Shechem, basically, which is, if you've heard some of my other stuff on this, I believe that's ground zero. So I've never made that connection before regarding the selection of the wife for Isaac, as well as this situation with the woman at the well, but cool insight. And
when did you run across that, Samuel? This week during your studies?
Yeah, as what I do is I usually do a Torah portion with Rabbi Steve Berkson in MTOI earlier in the week, but we only get like a chapter in because the Midrash just ends up eating up 90% of the time, and we end up never getting anywhere past the first chapter. So yeah. I have to, and that's only in the first part of the Torah portion, let alone the Haftarah and the readings from the Brit. So I saw like the next day is usually my research day for everything, and then I just come on and I just share that with all of you guys. And I noticed that, like, that was one of the first things I noticed reading in John. I looked back, just wanted to make sure. I'm like, that seems really similar to Eliezer and Rebecca in Genesis. So I had to check. I just wanted to be sure about that, and that's why I brought it up here.
Yeah, great point, Samuel. Same thing when especially in the beginning when I first started getting into Torah study, is we would do like one chapter and then talk about it, one chapter, talk about it, and I mean the midrash, or the sort of the back and forth discussion of each chapter, it would take. I mean, it was not uncommon for us to start our Shabbat at like 1 o'clock and still be there at 1 a.m. It's just going nonstop. And then, like you, the next day, I was going deeper into the things that I learned the day before. Very, very much like what you were just talking about. But when he was talking about the Haftarah, that's the prophets, and the Brit Hadashah is the New Testament. And you'll see that, for thousands of years, the rabbis had paired up various portions from the prophets to go along with the Torah portion, because there's some kind of link, there's some kind of relationship between what is said in the Torah portion and what's said by the prophets. And then later, after Yeshua and the disciples and the New Testament is written, the early Christians started to pair up New Testament portions that go along with the Haftarah, the prophets, and the Torah portion. And so this passage he's talking about is paired up. It's John 4, 1-42 is in the New Testament portion that's part of our study. So, people did clearly see correlations here in order for them to have put together these reading schedules. So there probably is something there for us to be carefully considering. And that's the reason why in the workbooks and on all these pages, I have these 3 questions. that, I've kind of gotten away from just because we get into a lot of other dialogue, but I want to encourage people just to think about these questions anyway. How does this week's Torah portion relate to Haftorah of the prophets and the New Testament portions? What did you find most interesting about this week's reading, and what is the general theme of this reading, and how does it apply to our lives today? Those are three very generic questions that I put on every single week's study just to get the mind going and kickstart the conversation. But that's what leads you down rabbit trails similar to what Samuel's describing as you go deeper into these things and try to figure out why they are linked together.
All right, and in addition, I'm curious as to what you thought about my point in verses 14 to 42. And if you need me to repeat it, I can. I'm just curious, as namely to what you and John think about that, because I find that really fascinating as to just
say it again. What was it?
How Yeshua, just based on how I read that text, explains how the former generation of believer, while reaping, sows for the next generation immediately behind them. And it's just a weird thing, like you're eating the fruit and you're letting the seeds fall into the ground for another tree to grow, for someone to cut it down and eat the fruit. And it's a really interesting image, and it's just a different way of looking at this whole walk for me. Because a lot of people look at it, like myself included up until this, looked at it like, okay, I'm looking to reap a harvest, plant seeds and reap a harvest, but I'm like, no, wait a minute, I'm supposed to be planting seeds for the group behind me too. So.
Right, yeah. Well, that's why I call the TV show that I'm developing Seed. That's because I'm planting seeds. And, you guys have heard me say before, I believe we have more time. You listen to a lot of these, prophecy gurus and ministries and whatnot. You listen to these guys, you think tomorrow's the end of the world. I mean, and I was in that camp. I used to think that too. In fact, I was just thinking about it today. I'm like, if all you do is spend time listening to Steve Quayle and Alex Jones and people like that, and look, I'm not knocking those guys. They're watchmen on the wall. They're doing their thing. They are pointing out things that are really happening. I'm not saying that we should bury our heads in the sand and pretend it doesn't exist. I'm just saying if that's all you listen to, you're going to become paranoid. You're going to think there's nothing good in this world. Everything is falling apart. And yeah, there is a lot of bad in the world. And there's a lot of things that are falling apart, but there's also still a lot of good in the world. There's still a lot of good people out there, and there's still a lot of good things happening. This, among other reasons, have led me to believe that we have more time. And I'm excited by that. I hope I'm wrong. I hope we get out of here soon, but I'm excited with the prospect that we may have a lot more time, and regardless, we're supposed to occupy until he comes. And for me, that means planting seeds. A lot of seeds that were planted in me, we talked about this in some of the previous shows, how a lot of us who are on this journey right now, you have planted those seeds in us, and in some cases, maybe a decade ago. For me, I'm drawing. I did a barter with an attorney for some of his services, and he needed me to draw a logo for his Sunday school class, and he was a Seventh-day Adventist, and he wanted me to draw a logo called Sabbath Keepers. This is 1998, right? I didn't start keeping Sabbath until 2010. So, seeds were dropped in me that were later watered and started to produce a harvest. But you're right. As we start to produce fruit ourselves, we're also supposed to be dropping seeds. And, that's the whole reason for everything that I'm doing right now is hopefully casting seeds. And interestingly enough, some of you have heard my story too. When I was going through my crucible in 2002, before I got hired at East West Ministries in 2004 that I talked about earlier, an organization called Bearing Precious Seed International wanted to hire me to do the same job that I ended up doing in 2004 when I got hired at East West Ministries. Back in 2002, they wanted to hire me to do the same job for them. So this idea of bearing seed, has been following me around forever. And I kid you not, if you see, and I'm going to put this up on the screen here for a second. This is how crazy it is for me. This is my seed website homepage. If you go to seedtheseries.com, I created this logo back in 2009, right? Well, first of all, you got a big tree on a flat plane. So that's a lot like the dream in the book of Daniel, where the king has a dream about a tree that grows so high that the whole world can see it, which is only possible on a circular flat earth. But long before I was on that page, I created this logo, right? And then later, as I start understanding how words have, like names have meanings and stuff, I thought, I'm gonna look up my own name. So I look up Robert. Well, the name Robert means bright fame, and whether I like it or not, I have achieved some level of fame, if not infamy, as a social media presence out there. But my last name, Skiba, is as I understand it, is shortened from a longer word, but it's a farming term that means to dig a furrow for planting seeds. That's what my last name means. And I find all that out long after I am led to create, all of this and work on a TV series called Seed. It's just crazy to me how God works like that.
Yeah, and going off of the whole name meaning thing, I actually do find that interesting, and I honestly think that the names we have actually do, to a degree,
define us.
Yeah, define us and explain our role that Yah has for us.
I agree.
Yeah, I mean, just to give an example, my name, Samuel Castro, name of God, fortress.
Wow.
You can put that together however you wish.
Wow, fortress for the name of God. How cool is that?
Yeah, exactly. And on top of that, my middle name's Theodore, which means gift of God.
Wow.
So, I mean, yeah, you could go however you want with that. I mean, the same with everyone.
Yeah.
I mean, our names have a really significant effect on how our lives play out and how our walks play out.
I
think
think
how we are as a person.
It took 40 years for me to walk into where I am now, but I am literally now, today, and for the last 7 years or so, have been walking in the meaning of my name. Like, I mean, that's just crazy to me, and all that stuff that I had been creating and everything was before I even knew that, before I even knew what the meaning of my name, what the names were. So, maybe that's a challenge for everybody out there, is to look up your names, find out what the meaning of your name is, and see if you're walking in it.
There you go. That's the challenge for next week. Bring it to us.
Bring it on.
What does your name mean? Samuel, again, man, you surprised us with another great study. All
right. Well, always great talking to you guys, and always great jumping out of the pool of the chat for a few minutes to talk to the lifeguards, quote unquote. So until next week, Shabbat Shalom.
Thank you, Samuel. Shabbat Shalom.
And I have put the link in the chat room once again for guys to come in. If you have any questions or comments for Rob or myself, bring it. On another note, there's a question from Cott. I'll read it to you. Are you ready?
Yeah.
Okay. Could someone explain the significance of Rebekah's mother wanting Eliezer to wait 10 days before leaving Canaan? I suspect it has something to do with Abraham telling Eliezer he is free of the oath if the girl refuses to come. Wait 10 days.
I have never thought of that. What I would find interesting would be to see if that happened during a feast season. Because the 10 days, they say the 10 days of awe that lead up to the Day of Atonement is the only time that I'm aware of where there's a specific 10-day time period of waiting. Other than that, I have never given that any thought. So another interesting seed to think about in water. And by the way, John, your name means Jehovah is a gracious giver.
Mm-hmm. Wow. Okay.
I thought it meant deep voice guy, but it's a little
gracious giver.
Jehovah is a grace. It's from Yohanan. John is the Greek form of Yohanan, I guess. So,
well, I've always thought, where Yeshua is talking to John and his brother, and he says, "Sons of thunder," and I'm going, well, that was me and my brothers knocking over things in the house from fighting and stuff. I'm going, well, I like that a whole lot better.
Yeah, well, I can see Yohanan would have sort of like Yah in the beginning there. And I guess Anan or something might have something to do with giving, I guess. I don't know. But I'm looking at that website, the Dictionary of Scripture Proper Names there. And so Yohanan, Jehovah is a gracious giver. And I can say that as your friend and as somebody that has known you for a little while now. you fit that name.
I hope I can honor Yahweh and continue to do so. On a short note, I want to say yesterday we did a show and John's giving away something from William Schnoblin, a DVD. And I'm going to announce that winner at the end of this show.
Cool.
And let you guys know how to get a hold of me. But we're going to keep our word, because he said tonight on the Virtual House Church we would announce the winner, and I'll do that towards the end of the show.
Cool. What was Bill Schnoblin talking about? What was his show about?
He was talking about churchcraft and witchcraft entering into mainline Christianity's churches.
Wow.
Yeah, it was pretty deep. He went pretty deep into it. And he was giving away a DVD, his new DVD on that. So I'm going to announce the winner at the end of the show, and you guys can get a hold of me and congratulations, but I'm not mentioning the name just yet.
Cool. All right. There you go. Good incentive to keep watching.
Yeah. Well, since
keep them hooked. Keep them hooked, John. Anybody else out there have any more commentary?
Well, I put the link in, and nobody's come on. So if we want to get into the book of Joshua, we could get through that, and I'll put the link back in towards the end of it.
Do we have any questions in the chat room?
It's all been
okay.
Just and somebody said they thought my name was Shakalaka Mumu.
Oh.
Which would have been great.
All righty then. On that note.
So, yeah. Okay. Count it all joy.
Okay, dokie. Here we go.
Rob,
we go.
You make. I was going to say, I better not say it.
All right. We'll do Joshua 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So here we go.
Joshua 11. When Jabin, king of Hazor, heard of this, he sent to Jobab, king of Madon, and to the king of Shimron, and to the king of Akshaph, and to the kings who were in the northern hill country, and in the Arabah south of Kinneroth, and in the lowland, and in Naphthdor on the west, to the Canaanites in the east and the west, the Amorites, the Hittites, the Perizzites, and the Jebusites in the hill country, and the Hivites under Hermon in the land of Mizpah. And they came out with all their troops, a great horde, in number like the sand that is on the seashore, with very many horses and chariots. And all these kings joined their forces, and came and encamped together at the waters of Merom to fight against Israel. And the Lord said to Joshua,
"Do not be afraid of them, for tomorrow at this time I will give over all of them slain to Israel. You shall hamstring their horses and burn their chariots with fire."
So Joshua and all his warriors came suddenly against them by the waters of Merom, and fell upon them. And the Lord gave them into the hand of Israel, who struck them and chased them as far as Great Sidon and Misrephoth-Maim, and eastward as far as the valley of Mizpeh. And they struck them until he left none remaining. And Joshua did to them just as the Lord said to him. He hamstrung their horses and burned their chariots with fire. And Joshua turned back at that time, and captured Hazor, and struck its king with the sword. For Hazor formerly was the head of all those kingdoms. And they struck with the sword all who were in it, devoting them to destruction. There was none left that breathed. And he burned Hazor with fire. And all the cities of those kings, and all their kings, Joshua captured, and struck them with the edge of the sword, devoting them to destruction, just as Moses, the servant of the Lord, had commanded. But none of the cities that stood on mounds did Israel burn, except Hazor alone. That Joshua burned. And all the spoil of these cities and the livestock the people of Israel took for their plunder. But every man they struck with the edge of the sword until they had destroyed them, and they did not leave any who breathed. Just as the Lord had commanded Moses his servant, so Moses commanded Joshua, and so Joshua did. He left nothing undone of all that the Lord had commanded Moses. So Joshua took all that land, the hill country, and all the Negeb, and all the land of Goshen, and the lowland, and the Arabah, and the hill country of Israel, and its lowland from Mount Halak, which rises toward Seir, as far as Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon, below Mount Hermon. And he captured all their kings, and struck them, and put them to death. Joshua made war a long time with all those kings. There was not a city that made peace with the people of Israel, except the Hivites, the inhabitants of Gibeon. They took them all in battle. For it was the Lord's doing to harden their hearts, that they should come against Israel in battle, in order that they should be devoted to destruction, and should receive no mercy, but be destroyed, just as the Lord commanded Moses. And Joshua came at that time, and cut off the Anakim from the hill country, from Hebron, from Debir, from Anab, and from all the hill country of Judah, and from all the hill country of Israel. Joshua devoted them to destruction with their cities. There was none of the Anakim left in the land of the people of Israel. Only in Gaza, in Gath, and in Ashdod did some remain. So Joshua took the whole land, according to all that the Lord had spoken to Moses. And Joshua gave it for an inheritance to Israel, according to their tribal allotments. And the land had rest from war. Joshua 12. Now these are the kings of the land whom the people of Israel defeated and took possession of their land beyond the Jordan toward the sunrise, from the valley of the Arnon to Mount Hermon, with all the Arabah eastward. Sihon, king of the Amorites, who lived at Heshbon, and ruled from Aroer, which is on the edge of the valley of the Arnon, and from the middle of the valley as far as the river Jabbok, the boundary of the Ammonites, that is half of Gilead. And the Arabah to the sea of Kinneroth eastward, and in the direction of Beth Jeshimoth, to the sea of the Arabah, the Salt Sea, southward to the foot of the slopes of Pisgah. And Og, king of Bashan, one of the remnant of the Rephaim, who lived at Ashtaroth, and at Edrei, and ruled over Mount Hermon, and Salecah, and all Bashan to the boundary of the Geshurites, and the Maacathites, and over half of Gilead, to the boundary of Sihon, king of Heshbon. Moses, the servant of the Lord, and the people of Israel defeated them. And Moses, the servant of the Lord, gave their land for a possession to the Reubenites, and the Gadites, and the half-tribe of Manasseh. And these are the kings of the land whom Joshua and the people of Israel defeated on the west side of the Jordan, from Baal-gad in the valley of Lebanon to Mount Halak that rises towards Seir. And Joshua gave their land to the tribes of Israel as a possession according to their allotments, in the hill country, in the lowland, in the Arabah, in the slopes, in the wilderness, and in the Negeb, the land of the Hittites, the Amorites, the Canaanites.
We already did these. This was when we had the conversation about the.
Hey, Rob.
Somebody should have stopped me. We already did these.
Yo, Rob.
Yeah.
Hey.
Hey. Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you.
Yeah, we already did all these. Somebody should have stopped me here.
I'm sitting there reading it. I'm going, hey, Rob.
These look familiar. So where did we leave off last time? Man, because we already did that. We had the conversation about the 33 kings.
Let's see here. Let me get my handy-dandy scriptures out here.
So maybe we did do all the way up to 15. Okay, Caleb says that he wants the Hebron. So the allotment of tribe of Judah according to clans, Salt Sea, Jordan. I think we already did all the way up through. I apologize for this.
Let's see here.
Well, we could look. Let me look on.
Oh, we got up to 16, I think.
So we did through 15?
We did through 15, and we stopped at 16.
So 16. So we're doing 16, 17, 18, 19, 20.
Yes.
Turkey.
I marked. Hey, Rob, I marked it down. It's at 16.
Okay, cool. Well, sorry for that. We'll.
Hey, this is the Virtual House Church. It's Shabbat Shalom. It's relaxed.
It's all good.
We're having a good time. People are chatting in the chat room, and hopefully, we'll follow through and have a lot of questions at the end here.
Yeah, I'll edit this part out when I post it on my channel. So, all right, here we go with Joshua 16.
Leave it in. Leave it in.
All right, here we go.
Joshua 16. The allotment of the people of Joseph went from the Jordan by Jericho, east of the waters of Jericho, into the wilderness, going up from Jericho into the hill country to Bethel. Then going from Bethel to Luz, it passes along to Ataroth, the territory of the Archites. Then it goes down westward to the territory of the Japhletites, as far as the territory of Lower Beth-horon, then to Gezer, and it ends at the sea.
The people of Joseph, Manasseh, and Ephraim received their inheritance. The territory of the people of Ephraim by their clans was as follows.
The boundary of their inheritance on the east was Ataroth-Adar, as far as Upper Beth-horon, and the boundary goes from there to the sea. On the north is Mikmethath. Then, on the east, the boundary turns around toward Taanath-Shiloh, and passes along beyond it on the east to Genoa. Then it goes down from Genoa to Ataroth, and to Naarah, and touches Jericho, ending at the Jordan. From Tapua, the boundary goes westward to the brook Cana, and ends at the sea. Such is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Ephraim by their clans, together with the towns that were set apart for the people of Ephraim within the inheritance of the Manassites, all those towns with their villages. However, they did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so the Canaanites have lived in the midst of Ephraim to this day, but have been made to do forced labor. Joshua 17. Then allotment was made to the people of Manasseh, for he was the firstborn of Joseph. To Machir, the firstborn of Manasseh, the father of Gilead, were allotted Gilead and Bashan, because he was a man of war. And allotments were made to the rest of the people of Manasseh by their clans, Abiezer, Helek, Asriel, Shechem, Hepher, and Shemida. These were the male descendants of Manasseh, the son of Joseph, by their clans. Now Zelophehad, the son of Hepher, son of Gilead, son of Machir, son of Manasseh, had no sons, but only daughters, and these are the names of his daughters: Mala, Noah, Hoglah, Milcah, and Tirzah. They approached Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun and the leaders, and said,
"The Lord commanded Moses to give us an inheritance along with our brothers."
So according to the mouth of the Lord, he gave them an inheritance among the brothers of their father. Thus there fell to Manasseh 10 portions, besides the land of Gilead and Bashan, which is on the other side of the Jordan, because the daughters of Manasseh received an inheritance along with his sons. The land of Gilead was allotted to the rest of the people of Manasseh. The territory of Manasseh reached from Asher to Mikmethath, which is east of Shechem. Then the boundary goes along southward to the inhabitants of Tapua. The land of Tapua belonged to Manasseh, but the town of Tapua on the boundary of Manasseh belonged to the people of Ephraim. Then the boundary went down to the brook Cana. These cities, to the south of the brook, among the cities of Manasseh, belonged to Ephraim. Then the boundary of Manasseh goes on the north side of the brook and ends at the sea, the land to the south being Ephraim's, and that to the north being Manasseh's, with the sea forming its boundary. On the north, Asher is reached, and on the east, Issachar. Also in Issachar, and in Asher, Manasseh had Bethshean and its villages, and Ibleam and its villages, and the inhabitants of Dor and its villages, and the inhabitants of Endor and its villages, and the inhabitants of Taanach and its villages, and the inhabitants of Megiddo and its villages. The third is Naphath. Yet the people of Manasseh could not take possession of those cities, but the Canaanites persisted in dwelling in that land. Now when the people of Israel grew strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not utterly drive them out. Then the people of Joseph spoke to Joshua, saying,
"Why have you given me but one lot, and one portion as an inheritance, although I am a numerous people? Since all along the Lord has blessed me."
And Joshua said to them,
"If you are a numerous people, go up by yourselves to the forest, and there clear ground for yourselves in the land of the Perizzites and the Rephaim, since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you."
The people of Joseph said,
"The hill country is not enough for us. Yet all the Canaanites who dwell in the plain have chariots of iron, both those in Bethshean and its villages, and those in the valley of Jezreel."
Then Joshua said to the house of Joseph, to Ephraim and Manasseh,
"You are a numerous people and have great power. You shall not have one allotment only, but the hill country shall be yours. For though it is a forest, you shall clear it and possess it to its farthest borders. For you shall drive out the Canaanites, though they have chariots of iron, and though they are strong."
Joshua 18. Then the whole congregation of the people of Israel assembled at Shiloh and set up the tent of meeting there. The land lay subdued before them. There remained among the people of Israel 7 tribes whose inheritance had not yet been apportioned. So Joshua said to the people of Israel,
How long will you put off going in to take possession of the land, which the Lord, the God of your fathers, has given you? Provide 3 men from each tribe, and I will send them out that they may set out and go up and down the land. They shall write a description of it with a view to their inheritances, and then come to me. They shall divide it into 7 portions. Judah shall continue in his territory on the south, and the house of Joseph shall continue in their territory on the north. And you shall describe the land in 7 divisions, and bring the description here to me. And I will cast lots for you here before the Lord our God. The Levites have no portion among you, for the priesthood of the Lord is their heritage. And Gad and Reuben and half the tribe of Manasseh have received their inheritance beyond the Jordan eastward, which Moses the servant of the Lord gave them.
So the men arose and went, and Joshua charged those who went to write the description of the land, saying,
Go up and down in the land and write a description and return to me, and I will cast lots for you here before the Lord in Shiloh.
So the men went and passed up and down in the land, and wrote in a book a description of it by towns in 7 divisions. Then they came to Joshua to the camp at Shiloh, and Joshua cast lots for them in Shiloh before the Lord. And there Joshua apportioned the land to the people of Israel, to each his portion.
The lot of the tribe of the people of Benjamin, according to its clans, came up, and the territory allotted to it fell between the people of Judah and the people of Joseph.
On the north side, their boundary began at the Jordan. Then the boundary goes up to the shoulder north of Jericho, then up through the hill country westward, and it ends at the wilderness of Bethaven. From there, the boundary passes along southward in the direction of Luz, to the shoulder of Luz, that is Bethel. Then the boundary goes down to Adaroth Adar, on the mountain that lies south of lower Beth Horon. Then the boundary goes in another direction, turning on the western side southward from the mountain that lies to the south, opposite Beth Horon, and it ends at Kiriath Baal, that is, Kiriath Jearim, a city belonging to the people of Judah. This forms the western side. And the southern side begins at the outskirts of Kiriath Jearim, and the boundary goes from there to Ephron, to the spring of the waters of Nephtoah. Then the boundary goes down to the border of the mountain that overlooks the valley of the son of Hinnom, which is at the north end of the valley of Rephaim. And it then goes down the valley of Hinnom, south of the shoulder of the Jebusites, and downward to Enrogel. Then it bends in a northerly direction, going on to En-Shemesh, and from there it goes to Galiloth, which is opposite the ascent of Edomim. Then it goes down to the stone of Bohan, the son of Reuben, and passing on to the north of the shoulder of Beth Araba, it goes down to the Araba. Then the boundary passes on to the north of the shoulder of Beth Hoglah, and the boundary ends at the northern bay of the Salt Sea, at the south end of the Jordan. This is the southern border. The Jordan forms its boundary on the eastern side.
This is the inheritance of the people of Benjamin, according to their clans, boundary by boundary all around.
Now the cities of the tribe of the people of Benjamin, according to their clans, were Jericho, Beth Hoglah, Emek Keziz, Beth Araba, Zemaraim, Bethel, Avim, Perah, Ophrah, Kepher Ammoni, Ophni, Geba, 12 cities with their villages: Gibeon, Ramah, Beeroth, Mizpah, Kephirah, Moza, Rechem, Irpeel, Terah, Zelah, Haeliph, Jebus, that is Jerusalem, Gibeah, and Kiriath Jearim, 14 cities with their villages.
This is the inheritance of the people of Benjamin, according to its clans.
Joshua 19.
The second lot came out for Simeon, for the tribe of the people of Simeon, according to their clans, and their inheritance was in the midst of the inheritance of the people of Judah.
And they had for their inheritance Beersheba, Sheba, Moladah, Hazer Shual, Bela, Ezem, Eltolad, Bethel, Hormah, Ziklag, Beth Markaboth, Hazer Susa, Beth Lebaoth, and Sharuhen, 13 cities with their villages: Ain, Rimmon, Ether, and Ashan, 4 cities with their villages, together with all the villages around these cities as far as Baalath Beer, Ramah of the Negeb.
This was the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Simeon, according to their clans.
The inheritance of the people of Simeon formed part of the territory of the people of Judah. Because the portion of the people of Judah was too large for them, the people of Simeon obtained an inheritance in the midst of their inheritance.
The third lot came up for the people of Zebulun, according to their clans, and the territory of their inheritance reached as far as Sarid.
Then their boundary goes up westward and on to Mariel and touches Dabbesheth, then the brook that is east of Jokneam. From Sarid it goes in the other direction, eastward toward the sunrise, to the boundary of Kisloth Tabor. From there it goes to Daberath, then up to Japhiah. From there it passes along the east, toward the sunrise, to Gath-Hepher, to Ethkazin, and going on to Rimmon it bends toward Neah. Then on the north the boundary turns about to Hanathon, and it ends at the valley of Iftael, and Katath, Nahalal, Shimron, Idalah, and Bethlehem, 12 cities with their villages.
This is the inheritance of the people of Zebulun, according to their clans, these cities with their villages. The fourth lot came out for Issachar, for the people of Issachar, according to their clans.
Their territory included Jezreel, Kesuloth, Shunem, Hapharaim, Shion, Anaharath, Rabbath, Kishion, Ebez, Remeth, and Ganim, and Hattah, Bethpazes. The boundary also touches Tabor, Shehazuma, and Bethshemesh, and its boundary ends at the Jordan, 16 cities with their villages.
This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Issachar, according to their clans, the cities with their villages. The fifth lot came out for the tribe of the people of Asher, according to their clans.
Their territory included Helkath, Halai, Beaton, Akshaph, Alamelech, Amad, and Mishal. On the west it touches Carmel and Shihor-Libnath. Then it turns eastward. It goes to Beth-Dagon and touches Zebulun and the valley of Iftael northward to Beth-Emek and Neiel. Then it continues in the north to Cabul, Ebron, Rehob, Hammon, Cana, as far as Sidon the Great. Then the boundary turns to Ramah, reaching to the fortified city of Tyre. Then the boundary turns to Hosa, and it ends at the sea. Mahalab, Akzib, Ummah, Aphek, and Rehob, 22 cities with their villages.
This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Asher, according to their clans, these cities with their villages. The sixth lot came out for the people of Naphtali, according to their clans.
And their boundary ran from Heleph, from the oak in Zaanannim, and Adamai Nekeb, and Jabneel as far as Lacham, and it ended at the Jordan. Then the boundary turns westward to Asnoth Tabor, and goes from there to Hukkok, touching Zebulun at the south, and Asher on the west, and Judah on the east at the Jordan. The fortified cities are Ziddim, Zur, Hamath, Rakkath, Kinnereth, Adamah, Ramah, Hazor, Kedesh, Edrei, and Hazor, Yiron, Migdalel, Horam, Beth-Anath, and Beth-Shemesh, 19 cities with their villages.
This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Naphtali, according to their clans, the cities with their villages. The seventh lot came out for the tribe of the people of Dan, according to their clans.
And the territory of its inheritance included Zorah, Eshtaol, Ir-Shemesh, Shealabin, Ajalon, Ithla, Elon, Timnah, Ekron, Eltekah, Gibbethon, Baalath, Jehud, Beni-Berak, Gathrimmon, and Majarkon and Rakkon with the territory over against Joppa. When the territory of the people of Dan was lost to them, the people of Dan went up and fought against Leshem, and after capturing it and striking it with the sword, they took possession of it and settled in it, calling Leshem Dan, after the name of Dan their ancestor.
This is the inheritance of the tribe of the people of Dan, according to their clans, these cities with their villages.
When they had finished distributing the several territories of the land as inheritances, the people of Israel gave an inheritance among them to Joshua, the son of Nun. By command of the Lord they gave him the city that he asked, Timnath-Serah, in the hill country of Ephraim. And he rebuilt the city and settled in it. These are the inheritances that Eleazar the priest and Joshua the son of Nun, and the heads of the fathers' houses of the tribes of the people of Israel, distributed by lot at Shiloh before the Lord, at the entrance of the tent of meeting. So they finished dividing the land. Joshua 20. Then the Lord said to Joshua,
Say to the people of Israel, appoint the cities of refuge of which I spoke to you through Moses, that the manslayer who strikes any person without intent or unknowingly may flee there. They shall be for you a refuge from the avenger of blood. He shall flee to one of these cities and shall stand at the entrance of the gate of the city and explain his case to the elders of that city. Then they shall take him into the city and give him a place, and he shall remain with them.
And if the avenger of blood pursues him, they shall not give up the manslayer into his hand, because he struck his neighbor unknowingly, and did not hate him in the past. And he shall remain in that city until he has stood before the congregation for judgment, until the death of him who is high priest at the time. Then the manslayer may return to his own town and his own home, to the town from which he fled.
So they set apart Kedesh in Galilee, in the hill country of Naphtali, and Shechem in the hill country of Ephraim, and Kiriath Arba, that is Hebron, in the hill country of Judah. And beyond the Jordan, east of Jericho, they appointed Bezer in the wilderness on the tableland, from the tribe of Reuben, and Ramoth in Gilead, from the tribe of Gad, and Golan in Bashan, from the tribe of Manasseh. These were the cities designated for all the people of Israel, and for the stranger sojourning among them, that anyone who killed a person without intent could flee there, so that he might not die by the hand of the avenger of blood, till he stood before the congregation.
All right. That concludes our portion from Joshua.
Wow. You know, I'm excuse me. I'm going through the book of Nehemiah right now, and from chapter 8 all the way through the end of that chapter, they're renewing the covenant. Nehemiah 8, where he talks about Yahweh creating the heavens and the earth, goes into Abraham, and then he tells the story of the Exodus. And what they've done is they're rebuilding the city of Jerusalem and the walls, and they cast lots for each of the tribes, the Levite priest. And I'm going through Joshua right along with the scripture portion of the night, and I'm going, wow, what parallels, you know, as they divide up the land between each of the tribes, and what Nehemiah was doing again after renewing the covenant with Yahweh. I'm going, that's incredible.
Yeah. Yeah. So, I mean, a lot of names to go through there. And you know, at the beginning of this, I'm talking about the dictionary of scripture proper names and how it's a great resource. I don't have the time to do it, but boy, it'd be an interesting study to go through all those names and to lay them out in chronological order, the way they're listed with their meanings, and see what kind of sentence comes out of that, or what kind of paragraphs come out of those listings. A couple of things that jumped out at me was in Joshua 16, 10. It said, however, they did not drive out the Canaanites who lived in Gezer, so the Canaanites have lived in the midst of Ephraim to this day, but have been made to do forced labor. So, I mean, if you kind of want to understand why the northern tribes went astray so easily, it's because they had Canaanites living among them. You know, they corrupted them and led them away to other gods. And, you know, why would they be used for forced labor? Well, I believe the Canaanites were, by and large, pardon the pun, giants. We see, I believe it's 1 Kings chapter 9, I think, where the description of how the Temple of Solomon was built is built by these guys. It's built by Nephilim. The tribes that Yahuwah says to utterly destroy, those are the same ites that show up as the forced labor, camp that was used to construct the temple, with 666 talents of gold brought to them every year, incidentally. Rather interesting. We also see in Joshua 17:12, yet the people of Manasseh could not take possession of those cities, but the Canaanites persisted in dwelling in that land. Verse 13, now when the people of Israel grew strong, they put the Canaanites to forced labor, but did not utterly drive them out. So we see it again in chapter 17. But then we see them complaining, and in verse 15 of Joshua 17, Joshua says to them, if you are a numerous people, go up by yourselves to the forest, and there clear the ground for yourselves in that land of the Perizzites and the Raphaim. The Raphaim, these are giants. Since the hill country of Ephraim is too narrow for you. He's like, yep, you got enough people. Go up there and take it.
Well, and you know, I'm like I told you, Rob, I'm stuck in Nehemiah right now, going through that book, and the parallels that I'm seeing are because Nehemiah said they separated themselves from all the nations. Towards, I think it's in chapter 11 where they separate themselves. They don't want that problem that he knew from reading the Torah. Had the priest, the high priest, was called Yeshua of all things. I blew my mind, and he's reading the Torah, doing the covenant, and they separated themselves from everyone. The entire, I mean, he separated themselves, and they read from the Torah. And I'm wondering if he saw this from Joshua, and he's going, "We're not doing that. We're not going to do that." On mute. Got you on mute. Sorry.
Sorry, there we go. Yeah, that's a really good insight. Because we also see, when they're building the second temple, that a bunch of Levites, they got together and they made a vow. They said, we're not going to, this is where the whole buying and selling on Sabbath comes from, which is one of those hot issues. People, you're not supposed to buy and sell. And I get the reason for it, because the idea is if I'm buying something and somebody else is selling, that implies that the other person is working. And we're not, I'm not supposed to be working on Shabbat, and I shouldn't be making anybody else buy on Shabbat. But this is not thus saith the Lord. This is just thus thinketh Rob, and I could be wrong. Okay, I'm going to specify that I could be wrong. I personally don't see anything wrong with if I have to go buy gas for my car and I put a card in the thing and I buy gas on a machine to put gas in my car on Shabbat. I don't. Nobody's working. I'm not making somebody work. So people get all wrapped up around the buying and selling. Well, you're not supposed to buy and sell. I'm like, okay, show me that in Torah. Show me in the Torah where it says you cannot buy or sell. I get that you can't work. I get that. Buying and selling in these days, though, is completely different. If I push a button and order something on Amazon, well, you could argue maybe somebody on the other side on Amazon is having to work. Okay, I get that. But, going back to the buying gas, so that my donkey can continue on the journey. I don't see it. However, to your point, in that scenario, they made a vow amongst themselves. We will not buy from them.
Mm-hmm.
We won't do commerce with anybody during Shabbat. They were very specific about that. We're going to sanctify ourselves, set everything apart, and we're not going to do business with them while we're redoing the temple here.
Is that where they get that at? Because I mean, it's only in Nehemiah that we see it, that they're not going to buy or sell from the nations.
Correct. Okay. The buying and selling issue, and I can be wrong. I admit that I could be wrong on this, but in all the years that I've been going through Torah, I have not seen a prohibition against buying and selling. I've seen a prohibition against working, but I haven't seen a prohibition in Torah regarding buying and selling. And the only place that I have seen it is there, where those guys take that vow. But that's a mutual vow amongst those individual people for that specific time and season and what they were doing, that they made that.
Well, I know as our family, when we observe Shabbat, we do our very best not to make anybody else work for us. Right. And though, again, you're right about the Torah being very specific, when I read that, it's like, okay, they're making a covenant amongst themselves not to buy or sell from the nations, and they're separating themselves from the nations. I mean, they still do work, and they still commerce during the week, but on that Shabbat they don't.
Yeah,
you're right.
It's been a while since I looked at it, but as I remember it, they had like a gated community, and they shut the gates. And I'm like, nope. We're not gonna do commerce with these people.
All right, we've got two people in, Rob. Carl, you're the first one. You're on mute. If you can unmute yourself, and what's your comment? What's your question?
I can hear him hitting it on and off, but he doesn't say anything.
Can you hear me now?
There you go. Yep.
Okay, it has an X on my microphone thing, so I don't know if it's on or off. Well,
yep.
Hi guys.
How you doing?
Good. This is kind of a little off topic, but then I have a few family member and myself. I know the answer already, I think, but then I want to know what your opinion on it, Rob, about playing sports on the Sabbath. Like basketball or baseball. How what do you think about it?
Well, I'm not an athletic person, so it's not an issue for me. I tend to err on the side of that not being something to do on Sabbath. Nowadays, there are a lot of people who do that for a living. That's their livelihood is playing baseball or whatever. Well, even though they're playing a game, that's work. Now, I mean, this stirred up a little bit of a controversy when I was talking about Sabbath last time. Can you wash dishes or whatever? And look, I'm not the go-to person on this. I'm only sharing my opinion on it. If you do that for work during the week, stop. Is it just recreation? Is it just having fun on the weekend? Then maybe there's nothing wrong with it. Because I said something about working out, and people are like, well, you're working your muscles. Okay. Maybe I can go with that. Look, pray and let the Holy Spirit be your guide on it. If the Holy Spirit tells you, hey, I don't want you playing basketball, especially since you played it 4 other times this week, I want you to set the time apart to be with me. Well, then that's what the Holy Spirit leads you to do. Again, for me, that's not something I'm not athletic, so I don't have to deal with that issue. I would just pray about it if I was you.
All right. Thank you, Rob.
Yep. Yeah. Like I went for, I was talking about, whether or not you should work out or whatnot. And I remember Shabbat, when we normally meet, for whatever reason, they canceled. We couldn't do it there. And so there's a nature preserve near my apartment complex, a really nice nature preserve there. And there's some really good walking paths. So I went out for a walk. And I don't see any violation in Torah in doing so. It was very relaxing. It was a time of meditation. And as I was walking, I was praying and I was, observing his creation and having quite a spiritual encounter as I walked in nature. Now, if I decided to get on a bicycle, would there be a problem with that? Personally, I don't see that as a problem. Again, I could be wrong, but I don't see any problem with that. Again, Sabbath was made for us. It's to benefit us. It's a time where you stop what you normally do, take a break from what you normally do, set the day apart, and spend it with Yahuwah. Can you do that when you're playing sports? Yeah, you're going to have to answer that question for yourself.
We do home fellowship here on other families, and it's just growing. We've got now 3, 4, 5 different families gathering, and we have kids. And one of the Shabbats, we played wiffle ball in the backyard. Mm-hmm. It's like we enjoyed the day together in fellowship. We did our Torah portions, and it was all about Yahweh. But, as a families, we got together and we played wiffle ball, lots of laughing, lots of fun and running around and getting dirty out back. But Shabbat is for us.
Yeah, I just think that, and this always happens around year 2 or 3. Everybody that I've ever known, myself included, that has come into this walk, you come in with your eyes are just wide open. You're like, this is amazing, this is incredible, this is something different, this is something exciting, and you jump in with this zeal and excitement of something new. In year 2, you get a little bit more serious about it, and you start, I kind of really want to walk now. I want to do this right. And somewhere in that time period between 2 and year 3, that's when all the questions start coming up on, well, kindle a fire. Is that light bulb? That's a fire? Is it turning the ignition? And you start going down this path, and I think it starts off with genuinely good intent. You want to do what's right. And so you set up guardrails around the commandments, and you say, okay, I can go this far, but no farther. And I think that's what happened with the Pharisees, the Sadducees, and scribes and all that in Jesus' day, between the time of coming back from the exile in Babylon and the time of Yeshua. I think they built so many fences around the commandments that it literally became burdensome to keep them. And that's why Yeshua kept the Sabbath according to Scripture. not according to the Pharisees. So, those of you out there who think Yeshua broke the Sabbath, I got news for you. If he did, then he was a sinner. And if he's a sinner, then he's not the sinless lamb, and your faith in him is completely in vain. No, we have a sinless lamb as a savior. He did not sin. Sin is defined as transgression of the law. If he violated Torah, then he broke the law, and he's a sinner. I don't believe he did. I believe he was trying to show us what Sabbath is supposed to be. And he's like, look at David. Didn't he go in there and eat the showbread and all that? I mean, he pointed things out that in God's eyes, apparently, because Yeshua, incarnate and all that, said it was okay, or at least implied that it was. And he did, things that everybody else thought was wrong also. I think he was trying to show us that, look, guys, you're missing the point. The point of it is to chill out, dude. Take a break. All this stuff that you're doing 6 days a week, stop that. Switch gears. Relax. Chill out. Fellowship with your family. Spend time with your kids. Hang out with me. It's my day. I want to hang out with you, Yahuwah says. To me, it's really not that complicated, and I think if I cross over to doing something that is not applicable for Shabbat, I'll get that little prick in my heart saying, you're kind of pushing the limit here, Rob. And I have seen situations where, if I find that I have to try to justify it, then I'm probably going off the path, But the flip side of that is becoming so legalistic that you feel like you can do nothing else except lie in bed and breathe shallow, which is essentially what happened with the Pharisees and stuff. I mean, they said you had to put one shoe on right before you put the other one on, and you could only walk so far. I mean, so many paces was allowed, and they would create guards take a no crossing things like at a crime zone. This is as far as you could go on your property or whatever, and they created all these things that made it burdensome, not only for themselves, but for everybody else. And that's the danger that I think everybody runs into in the second or third year out of your zeal to do what's right. And I think the devil loves that. The devil absolutely loves it. He's like, okay, you love God. Great. Well, he's got rules, you better not. You better not. You better not. And he'll get you into this legalistic mindset where you live in constant condemnation or you live in constant judgment of everybody else. And you're pointing fingers at everybody else. Well, I saw you doing this and you shouldn't do that, blah, blah, blah. And we're all guilty of it. I'm guilty of it too, especially if you look at some of my earlier posts, back in the day when I was just getting into this. Everybody goes down this path. And it was in that season that we got a hold of Dr. Russ Houck's book, Epidemic, Examining the Infected Roots of Judaism and Christianity. And I could summarize the entire book in one analogy that he gives as a sort of simple drawing of a hill with a road going up, like the straight and narrow going off into the sunset, and there's a ditch on the left called Rabbinic Judaism and a ditch on the right called pagan Christianity. And what happens is many of us come out of pagan Christianity and we realize Christmas and Easter and all that stuff and Sunday, all this stuff is wrong. We finally realize it. We start to come up the hill, get on the straight and narrow path for a year or two. We're going great. And then all of a sudden we become legalistic Judaizers and then fall off the side and slide into Rabbinic Judaism. And everybody's wearing a kippah and everybody's doing all this stuff. And, and then there's the other guys over here that start off in Rabbinic Judaism, and then they finally get a hold of Yeshua and realize that who their Jewish Messiah is, and they start walking the straight and narrow until they eventually jump over the guardrail and slide off into doing Christmas and Easter. I know a very highly respected Jewish rabbi who has let me just say a business practice, and at Christmas and Easter, he's got a big old Nimrod boner sticking up over there, and I'm just going to say that's what it is. It's a phallic symbol. I'm sorry if that's offensive, but it's offensive to God, so I'm just going to say it the way it is. He's got that going on, and he's doing the Christmas and Easter. I'm like, dude, how do he teaches from the Hebrew Scriptures so deep and has such a deep understanding of all this stuff, and yet he's totally slid over and he's not keeping the Sabbath, and he's totally slid over into pagan Christianity. And I think that happens with both sides. Both camps get up on the straight and narrow, the devil starts smacking them around a little bit, then they fall off and slide off into one of the other ditches. And what Dr. Houck's book basically did for us anyway was kind of show us how to get those guardrails so that they're boundaries, not walls. A boundary has has like a gate that you can open up and let people in, or it's friendly, whereas a wall, not only does that keep everybody else out, but it keeps you locked in. You're in prison, so I think what he does is he shows us how to create in that book healthy boundaries as you try to walk this path. And look, 1 John 5 says it's not burdensome. If it starts to become burdensome, then there might be a problem.
Excellent explanation. I won't get into it, but I think it was our second year of not doing Christmas. The first year was a total shock to the entire family. And we sent out this family newsletter and everybody took it wrong. And it was in our zeal. We're doing this. We were so excited because we wanted to share this information and everybody would get it. And nobody got it in the family, right? Nobody. Sorry. Yeah. And then the second Christmas, Michael comes into the house where his grandma is, and he goes, "What a lovely, Nimrod boner you got there, Grandma."
Oh no!
I'm like, "Oh my God!"
Filters.
Michael, he don't care. He's so stoic, and he began to tell her the entire history of Christmas and all this, what he had learned. But we kind of mellowed, as the years have come through, but it's not burdensome, and we don't need to make it that way. Yahweh doesn't deal with us in burdensome ways. I mean, he, like you said, he does prick us. He, the Holy Spirit, the Ruach, tells us, look, John, you're deviating here. You need to get back on track. Repent from what you're doing. Get on track, but don't make it too hard on yourselves, guys. Yahweh he wants to love you on that day, so enjoy it. I see Diana is in. Thank you for listening to us, Diana. You there?
Shabbat shalom.
Shabbat shalom.
First of all, I want to say I'm totally stealing that Nimrod boner. I've always said phallic symbol. I have never heard it called that.
Oh no, I'm replicating. I'm sorry. I gotta repent.
Now on the Washington Monument, church steeples, Christmas trees.
Oh no.
Nimrod boners.
Oh no. I'm gonna answer for this one, I'm sure. Wow.
Totally stealing that. Okay, but sorry. But I wanted to touch on we were talking about first of all, the buying and selling on Shabbat. Every time I have gotten into a conversation about why people think that, it always goes back to, and like, I can't judge because I know scripture. I just am horrible with addresses of where, what's where. But every single time it's because they always associate that from the Tanakh with no man can buy or sell except they take the mark of the beast. And that's way in the Brit Hadashah, I believe in Revelation. That's a totally different, it's a prophecy. That is not a commandment about Shabbat, but in their mind, they associate buying and selling, commerce, with evil. And therefore I guess they feel that you're not supposed to, buy or sell on Shabbat. But I really, in every case of everyone that I've talked to, they always go to that and say, well, that's why. And it's like, well, yeah, no, those are totally different. One is a prophecy. The other was a long ago commandment. And it wasn't even a commandment. It wasn't said not to buy or sell on the Shabbat. It's just, they associate, do not do one's own pleasure and that kind of thing. If you shall, not do your pleasure or whatever. I'm terrible at saying verses verbatim too, but they associate that. But when I try to explain why I keep the Shabbat to people, and I try to explain, they don't understand what the Shabbat points to. The seventh day Shabbat points to. Mm-hmm. It points to the seventh day, the seventh millennium, the seventh day, in time, the seventh millennium of rest, where we're being taught. It's a millennium of teaching. Satan is going to be bound for 1,000 years. We're not going to have to deal with, Satan and his deceptions and all those things. So it's a rehearsal for that. That's why Yahuwah rested on the seventh day, not because he ever needs rests, but he set it apart for a reason, because it points to the culmination of his plan. And so that's what we need to focus on Shabbat. It just means just like we will have 1,000 years, that seventh day to be with just us and the Lord, without distractions and deceptions from the evil one. He'll be bound. That's what we need to mimic on Shabbat. Just put aside any worldly or secular distractions. That doesn't mean God is not going to disallow us to have fun. Yahuwah is not going to disallow fun or enjoyment during the millennium. It's quite the contrary. We're going to find godly ways of enjoying ourselves and fellowshipping and, learning his ways. That's the beauty of it, so it's not burdensome. It's something that we should do as a rehearsal for what is to come. And about the, being so overly dogmatic and falling into the takanot, the Pharisaical teachings. I mean, it's all through scripture, especially Yeshua taught us it is lawful to do good on Shabbat. If your neighbors or your donkey falls into a ditch, you're going to say, well, sucks for you, I can't help you at Shabbat. No. So, what's the modern day equivalent? Someone is stranded somewhere. They need you to go pick them up, or, it's not, like someone stranded at the mall, someone needs help, or, something like that. It's lawful to do good on Shabbat. That's doing the work of Yah. That's doing Yahuwah's work. So,
yeah, amen. Look at Yeshua. Much of his ministry was healing people, right?
Yeah.
Well, he did that on the Shabbat also,
Absolutely.
So, there's something there for all of us to learn in what he did on those days.
Yeah.
And so we should do likewise.
Absolutely. He was our example. So if he could do it on Shabbat, of course we could. He's not going to give us an example that we can't follow,
Yeah, like, something that comes up for an issue for me a lot of times is I'll be asked to speak, come to someplace, and, like I was in South Africa around this time a few years ago. And I'll do a conference on Shabbat, So I'm up there teaching. As I prefer, speaking, giving my opinion. I don't consider myself a teacher. I consider myself a person with strong opinions, and I just so happen to share it with anybody who wants to listen. So I'm doing that, but I'll have our books and DVDs and stuff for sale in the back. Now, out of respect for various congregations that I've been to, some who have strong opinions about this, no buying or selling on Shabbat, I won't do it if I know that that's what their deal is. Out of respect for them, I won't do it. I don't share that conviction, though. And I'm not just saying that because I'm selling my books on Shabbat. I've been to plenty of places where I wasn't doing anything but being a spectator, and saw other people, selling their CDs or DVDs or books or whatever on Shabbat. And never once did that ever become an issue for me. And the reason it's not an issue for me is because all the work that went into that was done a long time ago.
Yeah.
The countless hours of research, the days upon days of writing and editing and formatting and publishing, and editing videos and exporting videos and producing DVDs and creating graphics. All of that was done. That's work. That's what I do Sunday through Friday, up to sunset on Friday. That's what I do. That's a lot of work. I'm not doing any of that work when I'm sitting at a table exchanging one piece of plastic for another. If somebody says, here's my plastic credit card, and I say, here's my plastic DVD, I don't see where there's work involved there. Now, I know there's plenty of people out there going to disagree, call me a heretic and liar and hypocrite or whatever. Fine, that's your opinion. My opinion is, having done all the work, that goes into producing that piece of plastic, DVD or whatever, is that took lots of work over a long period of time that was done, months ago, weeks ago, years ago, in some cases, and it's not, nobody's working when my wife is sitting at a desk talking with somebody and they say, "Hey, Rob, I really enjoyed your talk. Can I buy your DVD?" And she says, "Sure." I don't see it. And nor do I see it when I've been at anybody else's conferences and stuff like that. But again, if I'm in a congregation where the people who are hosting it have a strong conviction about that, out of respect for them and not trying to be a stumbling block, I won't make it an issue.
Yeah. I agree with you. It's not like you're selling Marvel comics. It's your work involves the word of Yahuwah. It's ridiculous it's apples and oranges. Not that I don't necessarily believe it would be a good thing to go out and buy Marvel comics on Shabbat, but not that that isn't even the focus of what we're not supposed to do on the Shabbat. It's not about the exchange of money for goods. It's not about that. It's about the focus of our minds. Buying your materials is directly related to fellowship and studying Berean style, the word of Yahuwah. What better day than Shabbat, in my opinion. So,
yeah, I actually had a guy. I'm not going to mention his name. He's a pretty well known Hebraic musician, singer. Most people who are in sort of the Torah movement have heard this guy's music, and really great, Hebrew style music. He was selling his CDs and stuff on Shabbat after he ministered to us with his music during our meeting, and then afterwards, he was selling his CDs, and I pulled him aside and said, "First of all, I want you to know that I am not judging you, but I want to ask you a question based on some of the issues that I've had to deal with whenever I've done the same thing, sold on the Shabbat." And his word to me, I don't remember exactly how he put it, and I certainly don't want to put words in his mouth, but he basically said, if you're acting like a priest, did not the Levites receive?
Yeah. Exactly. Yep.
For their duties, on Shabbat. And I'm going, and when you're thinking about like tithe and stuff like that, it's not, in biblical times, it wasn't about money. It was about, here's a bunch of grain or here's a bunch of animals, stuff like that. But in a sense, that there was commerce taking place, if you will, in that sense, with regard to supporting the priests. So, I'm probably butchering the way he said it, but the way he said it at the time made sense to me, and
that does make sense.
And put my mind at ease. But look, somebody's going to disagree with me out there, and there'll be a whole bunch of videos produced next week about how I'm a heretic or whatever. But I'm just sharing my conviction, and to anybody out there who is of that mindset, fine. Show me in the Torah where there's a prohibition against buying and selling. I get work. We're not supposed to work. We're not supposed to make other people work for us. But in this day and age, there's a big difference between working and buying and selling. Like putting your piece of plastic in a machine and getting gasoline, as one example, or taking your piece of plastic and running it across a PayPal device and handing somebody a piece of plastic. There's no work involved in that.
That's right. That's right. Okay, well, thank you.
Diana, it's good to see you again, sister.
Good to see you too.
Welcome back.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, Shabbat Shalom.
Shabbat Shalom. We've got the garage doors that just came in. Are you there?
Yes, I am. Shabbat Shalom, everyone. How are you?
Shabbat Shalom.
Okay, so actually, I just wanted to talk about a couple of things, if that's okay. I have a few questions about the Sabbath, and not only that, but tzitzits. I know that they're supposed to be worn a certain way, a certain length. Now, I know, Rob, I know that you don't wear yours too long, because I remember seeing a clip where you stood up and you showed them a certain size or a certain length.
Yeah.
But I have other pretty reputable teachers saying that they should be a certain length and so on. But I can't find anywhere in Scripture.
No, and if you can't, if you can't find it in Scripture, I mean, when I was younger, one of the things that was kind of drilled into me as a kid, 2 Timothy 2:15, my life verse, study to show yourself approved, was kind of a catchphrase, was book, chapter, verse. If you're spouting something off to me that's not resonating with me, I would say, okay, fine, book, chapter, verse, dude. If you can give me book, chapter, verse, okay, then I'll listen to you. If you're spouting off your opinion, well, that's your opinion, and we all have them. You know what they say about opinions, right? So, I leave it at that. There's no command for specific length. There's no command for a specific set of colors. There's no command for a specific set of knots. That's all rabbinic tradition. And, to be fair, some of it may be very good and well-meaning and actually pretty cool. But book, chapter, verse,
Okay. All right. And also too, I mean, I have 3 children. A wife, oh man, she's just amazing. She really is. I mean, I could say, what? Scripture says we all have to wear purple, all of us, and it'll happen. Like, she's just with me that way. She's amazing. So, right. I mean, with that responsibility, I want to make sure that I'm doing everything the right way. And also too, what's funny is, like you said, the first, second, and third year, I mean, this has all been, like, my eyes have been open. All right. So it's funny. I'm sure a lot of people have went through this before with you, but, I went through, a friend of mine told me, like, about a year ago, he's like, dude, I think the world is flat. So I just started laughing, and I'm like, listen, I have a hard time understanding why I'm in New Jersey, and one day it could be 70 degrees in December, and the very next day it's 20 degrees. I just couldn't understand that. I'm like, aren't we a certain distance away from the sun? And I've always said this, I've always had questions in the and everything. 2 things I've always loved were the scriptures and science, which is funny, but and it just never really made sense to me. And then the more I looked into it, I stumbled across your stuff, which led me into the one video that you did, that you suggested 119 Ministries, and you showed a couple of the videos. I forget what they were called, but basically the Ephraim and Manasseh. I'm sorry, I'm getting stuck. I'm stuck.
Well, you're probably the videos I usually recommend a lot are Jim Staley's Identity Crisis.
Yes.
Which drives me crazy, because somebody's out there pulling those videos down, and I'm actually really upset about it. I can't say this for a fact, but I think that the ministry that the Passion for Truth that he was a part of, after he got went through his deal, they started just pulling everything down. And I think that's a huge mistake, because that video has touched so many people's lives, and it drives me crazy, because I'll finally find it on YouTube, and I'll post it on my websites, because I recommend it so much. So I always want to post it on my websites. It's on Virtual House Church. I have had to replace that video probably 5 or 6 times on Virtual House Church, because every time I put it up there, a week or 2 or 3 later, somebody's pulling it down. So, whoever's out there doing this, stop. I mean,
yes,
whatever your opinion is of Jim Staley, okay, that's fine. But his teaching has reached so many people and has had a radical impact on people's lives. You're doing them a disservice for the entire kingdom by pulling those videos down. Stop. Let those videos play out there, for crying out loud. So, that's a little pet peeve I have on that. But the other videos that are by 119 that I talk about a lot are the lost sheep, nailed to the cross, and the errors of dispensationalism. Those are the ones I typically recommend a lot from 119.
That's actually, you're right. You're 100% right. I went to check it. There's a screenshot that I took of all of them, just so I made sure I watched them. And when I did, needless to say, I sat there afterwards just staring at the screen with my mouth open, like, oh man. Because what was scary was, as I'm watching it, verse, I think Steve Matrias said the same thing. He just started hearing verse after verse after verse. Like, all of a sudden, everything just started getting put together. And the way that it worked out for me, it was such an overflow of it. I almost got scared. I pulled back, like, wait. Am I being, like, tricked here? Like, this is too easy. Like, it felt like it was so right that it was like, wait a second, And I slowed it down. I looked at it, and I was just completely convinced, completely convinced. And it was just, it all resonated, all of it. And I thought, like, I was the only person about 10, 15 years ago with the Strong's Concordance. Like nobody even knew what that was. And they're like, what's Aramaic? You know, and in Hebrew, really, you know, like they didn't even know. They just thought it was written by like priests or something. You know, the Bible was written by priests. And I was the only person I knew at that time. So I think I've told this story before here, but now it's like amazing. It's like going back to a field that you tried planting so many times and then thinking that you're going to find dust. And when you turn back, you find, you know, a forest, and you're just like, wait a second. Like I tried so much to till this ground before, and I come back and it's just, you know, it's overflowing. It's really beautiful what's happening now. It really is.
Yeah.
I know that Yahweh works through who he wants to work through. And it always, 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 I always said this from the beginning, especially when, you know, a teacher's not a teacher in his own home. You know, I tell my family, well, keep in mind, you know, Jesus said, come follow me. And he was talking to fishermen, you know, and these weren't the people that were learned in those days and so on. So that helps me out. That really does. You know, keep doing what you guys are doing. It's amazing. It's amazing.
Thank you.
Good to meet you.
Yeah. Likewise. Likewise.
Thanks,
oh, and by the way,
him.
yeah, my name is Guy, not Garage Doors. That's my company account.
Finally.
Yes.
I get to know your real name.
Guy.
Because every time you guys we have a question from Garage Doors.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, so it's Guy. Okay, I'll remember that.
I mean, I tell people I open doors for a living. So
there you go.
Well, I see you often. I try.
I pop in and out. I actually had a question for John. It was like the other day, and I had made a couple comments on his post that he had on Facebook. And I felt so bad because I'm one of those people that I hate texting. I hate typing anything because you don't know what the other person like feels on the other side. So what I actually typed, I'm like, first of all, I started typing in front of everybody. I should have just private messaged him with anything that I thought about his message, first of all. And I realized that like in the last message that I sent him. And second, it's like, I respect a lot of what you guys do, but when I read it, I'm like, man, this makes me sound like a total jerk. You know? I'm like, hey, you know, here's my personal number. If you want to call me up, I just wanted to apologize and, you know, and just say, you know, I'm more than just letters, but I think about it. You guys are busy, you know.
You know, I learn from everybody, and whether your opinion is the same as mine, whether you come to the same conclusions as mine, whether it's adversely directly against my opinion, I still learn from everyone, and I appreciate it. So no worries, man. No worries at all.
Yeah,
honestly, just like you.
It's amazing how you guys. You feel more like family than the family that I have, and I'm Italian. I have a very big family, and I find a home with you guys. Like I said, I play you guys. I own a garage door company, and I play you guys throughout the entire day. You know, it could be like now you see TV is constantly on, Rob's constantly on, Steve Matrius and Steve Bergson. I mean, just all the heavy hitters, and it's just constantly. And sometimes I'm like, wow. And other times I just feel like I feel like I'm right there. Like I just want to comment on it because it's so on point, you know? But all right. I'm sure you got a lot of other people. Listen, thank you very much. Shabbat Shalom, gentlemen. And thank you for the
Shalom, Guy. It's good to meet you.
Likewise. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks.
Two things I want to bring up on the tassels. And you're absolutely right. Book, chapter, and verse. In Numbers 15, and we always go to that, verses 37 and on, he just says a blue string.
Yep.
So you'll remember. It doesn't say length, doesn't say size, doesn't say white string, doesn't say where. And then we get into, people have their mindset on tallits. But of course, Brother Judah, that's what they wear in their custom, right? But it just says the four corners. It doesn't say how to put them on, or he just says the four corners of your clothing. But I can see where people get into that, and I don't know who the teachers are teaching to say how long it's got to be, or you got to have it a certain length, you got to have white or blue. It just says a blue string. That's all it says.
Yep. When I was trying to figure that deal out too, look, book, chapter, verse, and the few times we do see that command, it's very simple. There's not a lot given there, and you just got to have a blue one there. That's it. That doesn't mean everything else has to be white or green or purple or whatever color you want to make it. The way I interpret it is like, as long as I got a blue string there, I'm good. And
There you go.
And I don't, I'm not going to get legalistic about it other than what
Well,
it says.
I'm not going to have you say it, but this is what I got to say about Jim Staley. That teaching also, Yahweh used it to transform this family's view on how to read scripture and who we were as an identity being grafted into Israel. And with Jim, I love the Staley family. I loved all the teachings, and I myself second what Rob says. I am upset that they're pulling these teachings off of YouTube because they're really good. And if you go back and read the history, and I'll say it, if you go back and read the history of Mr. Staley, all his troubles started before Torah. I mean, if it started before Torah, and when he started getting into trouble, he did not run from it. He obeyed the Torah. He took the punishment, and he is doing a ministry now where he is at, and a very powerful one. If you read his blogs or read anything that he posts, he hasn't stopped. And his walk, it seems, from what he's writing, has gotten closer to Yahweh. But all that started before Torah. So don't throw him under the bus. That started before he came to know the narrow path that he's walking. And he did not run from it. He took it like a man, and he owned up to it after the fact.
Yeah, and I from what I've been hearing, and I don't want to be somebody spreading gossip myself, it seems like there's a lot of politics going on sort of behind the scenes. Whatever the case may be, if you guys are listening out there, just stop taking the videos down and stop making, other people are mirroring these videos. If the ministry itself wants to take them down, I get it. But I mean, when other people out there mirroring them, from what I understand, these other people are getting whacked for copyright, man, let me just say, like, when I first started making DVDs myself, like my first one was Mythology and the Coming Great Deception. And very shortly after I made that DVD, somebody ripped the DVD and put it up on YouTube, and it very, very quickly shot up to well over 100,000 hits. And my first thought was, well, that's 100,000 DVDs I didn't sell. This person's, ripping me off, and, blah, blah, blah. And I'm going to come after them for copyright infringement and yada, yada, yada. And I felt like the Holy Spirit just kind of smacked me and said, hey, first of all, that's information that I gave you. I understand you spent a whole lot of time editing it and putting it together and making it in the format that it is in, but there's well over 100,000 people out there that not only got a message that I gave to you, but you got advertisement in front of over 100,000 people that didn't know you existed before that. And so I thought about that, and I was like, well, that's true. I couldn't have paid for that kind of advertisement, because I was, before that DVD, nobody really knew I existed. I mean, I'd done a few little things here and there, but that's what kind of catapulted us into the, mainstream, if you will. And so really, since that time, you'll notice that probably 98% of everything that I produce is online for free. And the only reason I say it's 98 instead of 100 is because when I finally do sit down and put things into like book format, even though all of my books started out as blogs, which you can read for free, when I put it into print format, I usually find some added insight as I'm editing it, and we'll, insert a little bit more that wasn't in the original blog. But other than that, and usually then I'll be talking about it on a radio show, or it makes it into a PowerPoint anyway. So really, pretty much everything I do is available for free out there. And that has only helped our ministry, honestly, in terms of being able to get the word out to people. But just, it seems like the more I give, the more you receive, and I don't do it. I don't give to receive. It's just, I'm telling you, that's the natural byproduct of doing so. So all that to say, Jim Staley has given a lot, and he put all his stuff out for free on YouTube, and it impacted a lot. It radically changed my life, that identity crisis. I know it has done the same for many other people. That's why I always recommend it. So if you're out there being the one that's actively having people take it down, you need to really take a step back and pray about that. Because, seriously, you are hindering the work of God.
Amen. Amen. I agree. There's a few questions about Christmas, and it has to do with family. And guys, Steve Matria over on Torah Family did a great teaching. It's 10-14 minutes long about dealing with family and friends during the Christmas time. Highly recommend you go to torahfamily.com and look at the video that he just put out. It's on dealing with it. He talks about 119 Ministries, Truth or Tradition, but he doesn't go into that. He goes into the aspects of dealing with family and friends during the Christmas season and how you handle that once you step out of Babylon, starting to walk the narrow path. It's very helpful. And if you guys go to my Facebook page, I'll post it up there after the show. But it's one of those, it's during the seasons, and I'll pose a question to you, Rob. Maybe you can help them out and point them in the direction. Let's see. War says, question, what about visiting family who celebrates Christmas and are on Sunday churches on Shabbat afternoon during December for family getting together and have not seen them for years? There will not be food and visiting. They will have Christmas decorations up. We invited Rob and Doug Hamp to our first conference, and there was Christmas decorations up on the side, and we put the camera so it would get rid of those because we didn't want them up there because we didn't want to be associated with any of that stuff. But that was my fault because we didn't know that the place that we're having at was doing that. But at the same time, I get that. So, what is your take on dealing with family and friends during this time of year?
There's nothing wrong with fellowshipping and spending time with your family and friends. And, sort of the civilian market, if you will, has made it possible almost universally for people to have, time off, that they don't have to dip into their, vacation time or whatever. They naturally have those days off of work. And so, that's a normal time for people that don't have to work. They've got those normal days off to spend time with their friends and family. I don't see anything wrong with that. The problem that I see is when you slap the holy on the profane and think it's okay. Just spend time with your friends, spend time with your family, but don't, pretend that those days actually have anything to do with our Savior, other than the fact that he created every day. I get that. He's the creator of everything. I understand that. But when we start trying to say, Christmas is about the birth of our Savior and Easter is about the resurrection, no, it's not. No, it's not. And, the way we handle it is, pretty much our family and our friends, they know where we stand, on those things. We are getting less and less invitations to people's deals, and for me, frankly, it's easier not to have to go just for some of these things, just because it's awkward, it's uncomfortable, especially I can't keep quiet, and Sheila's even worse than I am on this. It's like, if you're gonna start saying these things, I'm gonna have to respond, so the trick is, and I haven't watched the video Steve put out yet, but Steve's the master of grace and defusing a situation and stuff like that. He's really good at that and has a sweet spirit and an awesome heart in that regard. So I'm sure it's a very helpful information. So not even seen it, I would just go ahead and recommend people watch it. For that reason. But look, again, I don't see any problem with getting together with friends and family. It's just you're gonna have to have the filters and the love and grace to deal with the conversations that come up during those meetings. And somebody was asking me about Hanukkah, and look, it's not one of the Moedim, it's not one of the biblical appointed times. However, if you look at what happened, I'm not talking about what people do for Hanukkah now, the traditions that people do now, because you run into some of the same problems with the traditions that you run into with Christmas and stuff. But if you read the Maccabees, and you see, and it took place on December 25th, incidentally. So it is interesting to me that, here's Antiochus Epiphanes and the Romans and stuff. They come in there and, they set up a statue of Zeus and they offer up a pig and all that and defile the temple and all that on December 25th, right? And then 3 years later to the day, through the Maccabean revolt and all that, the Jews got together and said, nope, this isn't going to happen anymore. And they tore all that stuff down. They tore down the desecrated altar and they rededicated the temple after they got rid of paganism. So I mean, I can't think of a better thing, even though it's not one of the biblical Moedim, if you do what the intent of Hanukkah was, it's a time of repentance from paganism and a rededication to the things of Yahuwah. And it just so happened to have taken place on the same day. So, why not, celebrate that? I mean, it's something worthy of celebration. And some call it the Festival of Lights and stuff too. And I don't know that I could say Yeshua celebrated it, but I can say that Yeshua attended it. He was there when that was taking place. So,
the story of Maccabees is phenomenal. It is absolutely. It's one of those books where you want to make a movie about it. It would be an epic.
Well,
if they did it right.
Supposedly, Mel Gibson has said on numerous occasions that he wants to do that, and I mean, it is the Jewish Braveheart. That's what it is.
It is, and just reading Maccabees, John the Baptist's dad, where's he going to go into the Holy Holies? If they hadn't have done that, all of this back in the Brit in the New Testament wouldn't have happened.
Right. That's right. It needed to happen in order for exactly what you said, for the New Testament to play out the way it did.
Exactly, and you're right. You basically said what Steve did during the his video that he did on Christmas and family. He even goes as far as to deal with if one is a believing spouse and the other isn't, and it's really good. It's about 11 to 14 minutes. Go see it. But basically, you guys are saying the same thing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's very interesting. Shelley wants to know what book of Dr. Hauck's that you were talking about earlier.
Yeah, let me just pull it up on Amazon for people, and I'll send you the link. It's called Epidemic Infected. There it is. Epidemic Examining the Infected Roots of Judaism and Christianity. So I'll put that link in the chat room for you.
Excellent. And I'll put that in the chat room for everybody else. Oh, we're at 11:03 here, and I've got one question for you, Rob. Hope you don't mind. And I've held it because when I read it today, I had never heard of it. What is Lordship salvation? What the heck is that?
There's several knuckle dragging low lifes out there who make it their life's mission to create videos to call me a heretic and whatever, bash me for everything I do. I mean, they apparently do nothing but watch videos that they hate, knowing that they're going to hate it, just so they can make videos about how bad it is and why I'm just crazy and whatever. And one of them is constantly coming after me, saying that I'm promoting Lordship salvation. And then somebody else posted it on my Facebook page today that you sound like you're into Lordship salvation. I've never heard the term before, so I don't know what the official doctrine, if there is one out there, what it represents or what it means. Have no idea. But my take on it is, if Yahuwah is not the Lord of your life through a relationship with Yeshua, you're probably not saved. So he's the Lord of my life. So, my salvation is contingent on the fact that he is Lord, so by that definition, regardless of whatever the real definition might be, yeah, I guess I am a part of Lordship salvation.
Well, I told you a little bit about my day right before the show, and I'm sitting there in my radiator smoking. So while I'm waiting for the tow truck and Patricia and the kids to get there and make it a whole circus there, I'm sitting there reading Facebook, right? I got time to kill. And I look at that and I'm going, I've never heard that before. And I'm going, how many directions do people come at you? It's like,
oh man, dude, it's a and I've been doing these Rob Skiba's take on blah 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 videos, like you're saying, makes short segments from these long segments and just posting clips about these things. And I was thinking about today, I'm like, boy, I really am giving some of these people some good ammunition, because I made it, instead of making them watch the 3 hours or 2 hour long videos, I've given them 5 and 10 minute videos they could just nap. So just trust me, within the next week or two, there'll be about 4 or 5 of them out on YouTube.
One of the reasons
taking sound bites.
One of the reasons I like them so much is because people ask questions, and when they ask questions, the answer is short, sweet, and to the point. and it's Rob's take on the virtual house church. And that way I could take the video and take a look at this and we could talk about it. And they're so helpful. They really are, in ministering and getting people. Well, if they do have questions, they can come back and come on to the virtual house church and come on and talk to you about it. But they're very helpful. So I appreciate it. I really do, because they're a helpful tool.
I'm sure that my enemies think the same thing. So I'm glad I'm out there helping people.
I'm right there with you, buddy. But I had never heard that before.
Yeah, I never heard it. It's all of a sudden become something that has come to my awareness because, in the last 3 or 4 months, I've been hearing it a lot. But again, if Yahuwah is not the Lord of your life, then you're probably not saved.
One more thing, and to clarify, and then I'm going to announce the winner of William Schoblin's DVD, Witchcraft in Churchianity. One time, and just put it on film, we do not follow the law for salvation.
Correct.
We follow it.
Salvation.
Right. We follow it because we love Yahweh. That's why we do it. There's blessings and curses, and maybe I could get you talk on that just a little bit. So get it clarified.
If anybody's been watching my Facebook page today, I just had it, man. I put out probably half a dozen or more posts. So I don't know. I don't know what it is, John. I mean, I know what I'm saying, but how that gets into people's noodles and gets, spun out into the things that they think I say, I have no idea. I don't know how much clearer I can be other than to say over and 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 over again, I believe we are saved by grace through faith and it's not of works. I believe that. Nothing that I have ever said, ever, should let anybody have any indication that I believe that I need to do these things for my salvation. I don't believe that. However, if you read 1 John 2-5, it should be a manifestation that you are saved. 1 John 2, if anyone says that he is in him but doesn't keep the commandments, he's a liar and the truth's not in him. So, it is not the root of our salvation. It should be a natural fruit of our salvation. I don't know how much clearer I can be. I mean, I've said it about every million different ways and said it just like I just said a few billion times, and people still, like today, I was like, if I see this one more time, I think my head's just going to explode. There's going to be gray matter all over the internet, just poof, everywhere. It's enough to drive you crazy, man.
Well, I didn't want to get you excited. It's just I'm sitting there with the radiator smoking. I'm sitting there snotting, and I've got 3 more stops to make. And it's like, let's see what Rob's up today. And wham, there they are. It's like, what is going on over there?
Holy cow, what's going on? Well, what happened is I produced a bunch of small segments from one of our earlier, I think it was week 52, the week 52 broadcast. And so I, put up, 3 or 4 short segments, and I put the whole thing up. Of course, each one of them created a firestorm of comments, both on YouTube as well as on Facebook. And I read those comments and I'm like, I don't know what people think. I don't know how can you say blue and they all hear red? I don't understand that. In my world, words mean things. And I think I have a pretty good grasp of comprehension, of comprehending, if you say something to me, John, I generally understand what you're saying and don't spin it off into something you don't say. But yeah, I don't know what it is with some of these. I mean, if my little microcosm is sort of indicative of what's going on in the macrocosm, then we've got a big problem. Clearly, the chlorine, fluoride, and aspartame is doing its job on the public at large. Maybe the chemtrails too.
I love you, brother. You're great. I'm sorry, man. Anyways, and that's where it comes up. Count it all joy.
Yeah. Yippee!
Well, I'm going to go ahead and announce the winner.
All right.
Of William's DVD. It's Churchcraft Wicca Churchianity: The End of Days, and it's Ed Padella. Ed, if you're going to watch this, I noticed you haven't been in the chat room tonight, but if you see this, we'll announce again tomorrow night during late night with David Carrico, we'll say your name again, but Ed Padilla, you won the DVD. Congratulations.
Yay!
Send me
Cool.
on Facebook or on chat tomorrow night. Send me your address so I could get John to send it to you.
Late Night with David Carrico.
Yeah, it's
like the new Tonight Show.
Yeah, well, every Saturday night, David Carrico comes on, and
Cool.
he does. We did a show 2 weeks ago. I think you might find this interesting, on the 1,000-year reign of Yeshua, and boy, did it cause a firestorm. Because he comes from it from a different perspective than most, and even I had like 100. I've got 100 questions I want to ask him, and we'll see where that goes. Because tomorrow night is Q&A with David Carrico on his teaching, so it should be interesting.
Cool.
And with that, you want to say a prayer, and then we'll end it.
Yeah.
Or do you have anything else? Okay.
Yeah. All right, Father Yahuwah, thank you for this day. Thank you for your Shabbat. I pray for your shalom to be upon everybody listening and everybody participating in your rest. And Father, just ask for your forgiveness for anything that that I or anybody else may have said or done that was dishonoring to you, and for everything that that was said and done by your Spirit. We pray that the seeds will be planted and produce a great harvest out there. And we thank you once again for this day, and I pray for everybody to have sweet rest tonight, and bring us all back safe and sound next week to talk some more about your word. And we pray these things in Yeshua's name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you for watching Rob Skiba's Virtual House Church, and we'll continue the fellowship on Virtual House Church Facebook. Shabbat Shalom, everyone.
Shabbat Shalom.